All right, welcome back, everybody. It's great to be at it again here at episode 6 with Ian Parks at our Stockpress podcast. In our previous episode, episode 5, we spoke about the importance of optionality, like given your prospects and your clients options when they approach you, when they interact with your product, with your sales team, with your website, and helping that um, have a positive impact in the way that people buy. And this episode, we're going to talk about take that a step further and talk about the different sales channels that you can have and how can you guarantee that the great customer experience when you have different channels, right? So let's start there. Ian, how do you um, guarantee that customer experience when there are different ways for your prospects to get in touch?
Yeah. Before I answer that question, I am going to say thank you very much for not pointing out that my sweater, sorry, is exactly the same color as my wall. So I am actually camouflaged and just a floating head today. So I appreciate that. And in the same way, I won't bring up the fact that we're recording this on your birthday. So happy birthday, Maurizio. Right,
Thank you.
to answer your question. Um, how do we guarantee the same customer experience when people buy a product a number of different ways? So I'm going to lean into kind of the brand element of this because I actually think it's really important. I think it's about using the brand in the first place to really set the expectation of the experience that people are going to get throughout. Um, I know this is something that Jessica and I talk at length about in terms of that, how we represent ourselves from the first minute you have contact with Stockpress to the latest moment that you had with either the product or someone on the team. We want that to all tie together. And if you can create that experience from minute one, and you can get through to the last moment that someone uploaded a file into Stockpress, and actually you kind of feel the same about the entire process, I think that's a really good starting point to making sure that that's a great customer experience. um I think that has to be balanced out with setting the expectations of what people are going to get. And I think that's something that are also very kind of keen to make sure. And, I think we've always had this notion that, we don't want to sell an idea, we want to sell a product. And a big part of selling a product is making sure that, we know that we can communicate our capabilities, but equally we're very upfront around some of the limitations. We're always going to have people ask us for things that we might not have in our roadmap or we might not have in the product. But, it's really important for us to stand there and say, well, actually, yeah, we totally understand where you're coming from, or, yeah, that's something we could look at because we could see how it could be used for other people. But the last thing we'd ever do is try and kind of smoke and mirrors folks and say, oh, yeah, no, that's fine. We do it like this, we do it like that. And actually, people just see through it straight away. So, I think those two things become really important. Number one, focus on your brand, create the expectation early on. Number two is like set the expectation and level set with your customers very early on by being really clear about who you are and what it is you're able to solve for. But, that's my take on it from that kind of brand and positioning level. I'd love to kind of understand the same thing from your perspective in terms of like guaranteeing that same customer experience across kind of the sales process almost.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll get started and being completely transparent that like you can't 100% guarantee that the experience is going to be pristine for everybody, right? There are going to be, of course, moments of the day, the week, the year, the experience that the person is going to feel that it wasn't 10 out of 10, right? But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't try and strive to be 10 out of 10
Yeah.
in every interaction. And it all depends. So it's a loaded question because the easy answer and the boring answer and sort of the annoying answer, well, it depends. And it depends on how the person wants to interact with you. So do they want to call? Do they want to jump into a meeting? Do they want to keep it in the chat, in the email, in, you know, text? It really depends on how the person feels more comfortable interacting with you, and just having that back and forth experience. Actually, not too long ago, we had this gentleman that chatted in the website, asked a couple of questions, wanted a demo. We jumped into a demo. He had, of course, done his homework, asked very insightful questions, asked for a workspace. We activated the premium features, and then 3 days later, boom, he paid, right? So it's that element of giving people what they ask for, right? If people want to chat in, then it's very important to be available. If people in the first call, hey, what's pricing? What does pricing look like? Just send the pricing. Of course, we have pricing public on the website, right? But sometimes that's not even enough for people. People, or my personal opinion is, I like to make things easier for people. Instead of going, hey, pricing is to the website, go find it. We actually have a PDF. It's like, hey, no worries, I'll send you a PDF with the pricing so that you can like share with other people in your team. So it's being very resourceful, and giving people not just the experience that they expect, and the information, like reassure that the information is at their fingertips, but also like put yourself into the prospect's position, and try to feel what they feel and to think what they think. It's like, how would I feel? How would I think if I try to interact with somebody and it's like they're already trying to sell me something, try to push their product, trying to sort of, and I'm not going to get political, but when you go into politics and somebody's pushing their agenda without trying to understand what you want and what you care about. So for me, when I talk about guaranteeing that experience, like regardless of the channel and the way, if it's voice, if it's text, if it's video, if it's email, LinkedIn, whatever it may be, it's about the content that you share, that to me is very important to striving and guaranteeing that experience.
And it's just on that, the two things that I kind of pulled out from that is give people the resources to feel like they're getting, like they're setting their own expectations, and be available. Like, you know, availability, so that actually the last 10% where they actually may want to speak to someone, that, you know, there is an availability, and actually it is easy to get hold of speaking to someone to answer those questions. But, you know, again, and I think this will resonate to, you know, a fair few people watching this, is, you know, availability when you're a small team becomes kind of, you know, one of the biggest challenges. So like, can you talk to me about what you feel some of those challenges are around creating that consistent experience, and especially, you know, whether it's through the lens of being a smaller team, or even actually whether that matters at all, and actually those same challenges exist when you're a bigger team?
Yeah, so I think the challenge of availability is consistent. I feel that once you start feeling too like stretched out, too thin, that is when the customer experience has a risk to derail itself. What do I mean by that? Like, I'll give you an example. Let's say we're all in calls. It has happened before. We're all in calls and somebody chats in. It's our response is better than no response. So saying something like, "Hey, we're in calls right now. Give us a couple of minutes, and we'll be with you shortly," rather than not answering at all. And that might hinder the customer experience, but at least there's an expectation that people are busy, and it's not like we don't want to answer, right? And that is a little bit frustrating for me personally, because I want to strive to answer everybody as quickly as I can, but it's hard. It's not, I'm not an octopus that I can do 8 things at the same time, right? So I think for the business, that is one of the main challenges, is you want to go so, you know, 300 miles an hour. You want to be available for everybody. And sometimes I think it's important to avoid burnout, to say, all right, we're doing the best we can. Let's be gracious with that. And some people will understand, some people will not. And then for the people that understand, great. For the people that don't, then we'll then apologize and send
Yeah.
an email or a call, or a survey, right?
Well, I
And
think
hopefully try to understand their experience. Yeah.
you've encapsulated something that I think is incredibly important that I think pride ourselves on. You know, it's one of the like top 3 things I'd put in our list is responsiveness, but setting expectation. Like you can do both. And I think it's really important to do that. Is like people are okay with timings as long as there's acknowledgement. And again, you know, we're probably a little bit too crazy about it. Like, you know, we make ourselves available as a team like pretty much all the time. Great example, last Friday night when actually all of our team were trying to solve something for the customer at, you know, 6 p.m. on a Friday evening, and we got there. And actually the customer had a really good experience. They got the answer they needed. They got on with what they needed to do. The expectation was set because we went back to them and said, look, we're looking at this. And actually it wasn't a challenge internally even. I think that was the most impressive part about the way the team came together there, was it was helping them do something within their organization that, you know, it's focused around us, but fundamentally wasn't, you know, platform related. It was kind of people related, but it was great. Like expectation was set. We worked it through together. We went back to them within 20 minutes or so. It was all kind of in hand. So I love that, the way that you've talked about that challenge, because I think the proactive part of that is set expectation early, be responsive, and create a plan as quickly as humanly possible that everyone's comfortable with and knows that they're going to get to kind of the right outcome. Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it's not going to happen, that the person isn't going to feel that they're cared after. I think it's an element of putting yourself in the other person's shoes. Let's say that person that doesn't have somebody from the team to speak to. How would they feel if they were, for example, in a call, and then I'm not, I'm not giving them my
Yeah,
attention because I'm speaking with somebody else, right? So I think we're grateful enough to haven't had this situation where somebody is dying to talk to us and gets mad because we're not available.
yeah,
I'm sure that potentially that's going to happen, but I think that also that experience comes from people just putting themselves over the past couple of years on the other person's shoes,
yeah.
which is amazing. Um, and to that, so you spoke about this experience, and we spoke about feedback. How important is creating different feedback loops to understand that experience?
Yeah, it's critical. I mean, that's all I can really say about it is like, you know, it's critical for the good stuff, it's critical for the things that don't go so well. Like you have to have feedback loops at every touch point. And I think you know, that's something I think we should dive into in the next episode, is like we've got all of these ways of capturing this feedback, good or bad. Let's use it to our advantage. So I think if you're good with that, let's make the subject of our next one like how you use those feedback loops to get the right result.
Yeah, absolutely. Feedback loops and expectations, because uh, making sure that everybody is on the same page. That's the goal. Happy days.
Yeah, love it. Well, let's do it.
Awesome. Um, Great as always to speak to Ian. Thank you everybody for listening. We'll see you in episode 7 next week. Bye.
Cheers.